I did this. I see a red light. Alrighty.
I changed the notes.
Oh, cool. Did I fix yours now?
I think
Okay.
so.
We're going to call the meeting to order. It is 2:35. The Lake Mohave Ranchos Fire District Board has called a special meeting this 15th day of May 2019 to discuss and possibly take action on information gained at a workshop meeting with the Golden Valley Fire District this morning. The board may vote to go into executive session on any agenda item pursuant to ARS 38-431-03A3 for legal advice with the district's attorney on matters as set forth in the agenda item. All agenda items and any variables thereto will be subject to board consideration, discussion, approval, or other action. All items are set for possible action. Roll call of board members.
Joe Campbell?
Deborah Cass.
Ellen Ray Bauer.
Charlotte close enough to her. Are you close enough to her with this?
Oh, yeah.
Let the record show that all are present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do acknowledge the Chief DeMayo's presence as well. Let's see, item number 4A, executive minutes approval of January 28, 2019, set 1, A3, A4. I'll have a copy of that with me, but I think we decided some time ago that was okay.
I make a motion to approve the executive minutes for January 28th, 2019.
I'll second that.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried, all in favor. Okay. Item number 5, call to the public and correspondence. Consideration and discussion of comments and complaints from the public. Those wishing to address the Lake Mohave Ranchos Fire District Board need not request permission in advance. The Fire District Board is not permitted to discuss or take action on any items that are not on the agenda that are raised in the call to the public. However, individual board members may be permitted to respond to criticism directed to them. Otherwise, the board may direct that staff review the matter or take that matter, or that the matter be placed on a future agenda. The Fire District Board cannot discuss or take legal action on any issue raised during the call to public due to restriction of the open meeting law. Please address the chair and not other members of the public and limit your speech to 3 minutes. Do we have anybody who would like to speak at this time? No. We will move on to item number 6, business 6A, discussion and possible action regarding review of workshop meeting with Golden Valley Fire District regarding fire and EMS IGA intergovernmental agreement pursuant to ARS 48-805-16A and C with associated cost negotiations of IGA intergovernmental agreement for fire and EMS services with Golden Valley Fire District and potential process to fill chief position vacancy during the interim. So I guess I'll start that with a brief synopsis of what our findings were at the Golden Valley Fire District meeting. Was that they're not interested because we don't have any personnel, basically bottom line. So we can proceed from there. Anybody have anything?
No. It seemed to be the enough staff for the ambulance was the critical issue. And although it was just a workshop, just talking and discussion, questions, answers, they've not taken any action, but it appeared that that was important. And if that staffing could be reached, that may be a consideration. But at this moment in time, that's not the case.
It would have to be in place within 2 weeks in order for them to consider the any kind of IGA management agreement.
I think that once that's in place, regardless of when that is, they may consider, but there's no guarantee. So, I think the other part of this item is looking to fill the chief position vacancy during the interim. And that may lead into discussion and possible action B regarding information for part-time interim chief / fire chief or full-time interim chief, fire chief, and the associated costs. But I think the most important piece right now before the board is the chief is retiring on the 31st, and we need to have in place continuance of operations. So what avenue does the board want to take to accomplish that?
And concurrent with that is we need personnel, regardless of whether anybody takes us as a management contract or if we're just on our own, we still need personnel. We've always needed personnel. And Chief Cunningham stated that it's still Chief DeMaio's responsibility to hire personnel until he's gone on May 31st. So he has a board authorized spending limit of $5,000, and I would like to make the motion that the chief direct the administrative assistant to go ahead and utilize the $500 option in place in placing an ad for the National Testing Network, so that we can get the personnel hiring aspect in line and moving. We need personnel regardless of what we do.
I second that motion.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Your item for discussion was for chief and interim chief, not for hiring of personnel. So that item's not on discussion or not on the agenda for action.
So basically, the $500 can go out to advertise for the chief.
Yeah, we've already agreed to that anyway, but
It just can't be an action item for the board because it's not on the agenda for action.
But Chief, that would fall under your responsibilities and duties. You could go ahead and do that, given your $5,000 limit.
It's a contract that would be signed and entered into, so I don't know how to work around that. I mean, I brought it to you in January and you guys tabled it, and it was never brought back up for discussion. So, like I said, it is with my discretion in my spending limit, but to enter into a contract with an agency takes board approval.
But in the past, that's occurred.
With admonishment, yes.
Okay, so it has occurred, and given that.
And I was given direction not to do that again without board approval.
Okay, we'll put it on the 29th
All right.
agenda.
And we do have advertisements everywhere that was directed by Chair Bauer. So we have advertisements out in the Daily Dispatch, Kingman Daily Miner, AFTA website.
I don't believe we did the Daily Dispatch yet because that was another $500
I
cost.
still don't see anything on our agenda dealing with the part-time.
I'm sorry.
Full-times.
Yes.
That's next, the 29th.
29th.
This is just strictly dealing with chief. It has nothing to do with our EMT, paramedics, full-time, part-time, POCs.
Yeah, I thought that had to do with the chief duties. I see that's not really specified, but
You know, I think one of the things that I raised was, who do we have internally that we could utilize in the interim until the board makes the final decision about this?
Treasurer.
And I think that's something that we should look at to see that we have someone in place to do that. I'm not talking about necessarily assuming the position of chief, but certainly their position could be elevated to assume more organizational duties.
I was contacted by Dave Estenson, our previous fire chief, who managed this district for 18 years successfully. And he has offered on a voluntary basis to assist in an advisory capacity if the board decides to elevate Mike Petway to a supervisory position in charge of operation. He feels that Mike would be best qualified for that position as our only remaining full-time person. He lives within 3/10 of a mile of our fire district. Response time would be 10 minutes or so to the station. He's proven with 25 years of faithful service to our community that his loyalty is here, not to any person. He knows the district, he knows where the hydrants are, what roads go through and which ones don't. That's kind of huge when you've got a fire truck stuck in the sand where a road is on the map, but it's a wash in reality. So let's see, is that under this, is that coming with A or B?
Probably could be both.
Can we combine A and B, because they kind of are related to each other?
I know that we had another person that applied for that same position, so I don't think it's fair that we're just assuming Mike's the only candidate that's qualified for this position.
Well, he applied for a chief's position, so it wouldn't be a chief's position. I guess it would just be a...
Well, they both indicated chief position on their applications. It didn't say intern or anything, so I'm just saying, I don't think it's fair that we don't take in consideration the other person that also applied, who is a paramedic that could do a little more than Mike can do, due to he can get our drug boxes, that kind of thing.
It's my understanding that an EMT can get the drug boxes when they're
Absolutely not.
in the position of a
Nope.
administrative capacity.
Negative.
Yeah.
I double checked that. That is controlled by the DEA and our base hospital, and I double checked that, and that is not true. No narcotics will be distributed to anybody that's not a paramedic.
Do we have documentation for that?
You can call the base hospital and talk to them yourself. I mean, but I do have emails from Heather Miller, who was the base hospital director, stating that exact fact.
Can you bring that on the 29th, Chief, because we'll probably be talking about that. Can you bring those emails?
It's the FDA and our base hospital, and
So is that a yes, I'll bring the emails on the 29th?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I did look over the applications from the other applicant as well as Mike's. Have you had a chance to review those?
Not really. I've only been on a few hours, so I had other things I had to do. Besides it, I started them and it was just too frustrating because you had to open everything one at a time.
Yes.
So I want to be able to print it out and go through them. So no, I have not gotten to go through both of them as thoroughly as I'd like to.
Madam Chair,
Yes?
do you have a motion on the floor to rescind that?
Yes, I rescind that motion to,
It's for $500.
for the placement of an ad NTN. Rescinded, thank you.
So checking with my fellow board members, so is this something that will be on the 29th, that we can look at those two applications and looking to see if we want to, in the interim, put a current staff person in place?
Yes, so it gives me time to look at them better.
Sure.
And I'm sure you didn't. Did you get to really look at the applicants?
Not yet,
So yeah, I would have to
I'm
say
sort
yes.
of going through right now.
Okay.
But we really need somebody in place prior to that. We've got 2 weeks.
I'm not
before
gonna-
the chief is gone.
I'm not going to rush into this either. I understand that you guys want it done today, but I'm sorry, I'm not informed enough to say, yes, I'm going to do this.
Just for a temporary interim position to cover the, so we're just gonna shut the station?
Well, if it comes down to it, I'm sorry. It's one of them things. You're putting me in a predicament, trying to push me into something I'm not going to do.
No, I'm not trying to push anything. I'm
Well,
just,
yeah, you are.
we're going one step at a time and we're finding out they're getting knocked down, one thing after another.
I'm sorry, I did not get time to look at them, and you guys are the one that pushed this meeting at 2 o'clock today or 2:30 today, knowing I just got back into town. And I haven't gotten to see them, and Joe hasn't, so I don't think it's right that we say, yes, we're going to put Mike into that position.
It's not the position that they're applying for, though. It would be
I know,
temporary.
you're saying a temporary position. That's still putting him into a position that you're still putting us in a spot that we have to agree on.
Just to keep the doors open, so.
The doors will still be open.
Madam
Who?
Chair, Madam Chair, I think what I'm hearing from my fellow board members is that they'll have time by the 29th, and let's put it on the agenda for the
Exactly.
29th. And we'll make a decision. The chief leaves in a few days after that, and we'll make best do with what we have.
That's no time to bring anybody to the school.
It is what it is, Madam Chair.
Alrighty. Well, this is pretty much dead in the water.
I'm sorry that it is, but I don't think it's right that I jump right into something that I've not been well informed of. And if that's what you want, then I shouldn't be on this board, because I'm not gonna do it.
I'm not either. 'Cause
Okay, so let's see, so there's
Till
no
I-
action on item
We're going
6.
to postpone it to the 29th, I believe, but no action.
That's
It's for the
6B.
board member there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is for a board member.
Correct.
There's no action on
Right.
6A.
They want the positions for the fire department training.
No, these are all board members. These are all for the board.
So item 6C will be discussion and possible action regarding recommendations from CPA regarding part-time office assistant and internal controls of lapse of staffing coverage in office.
We need to get Dave on the phone.
So
right.
we tabled
Mike.
these also?
Yes. To the
I
29th.
guess I never did get them
Okay.
off of my computer. I thought I had.
Mm-hmm.
Just- Oh, God, there's so much of this crap. I don't know what I can.
Come on, Dave.
Beaver Staples, I'm sorry I make this phone right now. If we remain number message, I will return the call as soon as I can. Thank you.
No, he told us that he would be
At the
available.
tone, please record your message.
Maybe I just hung up on Karen too. Try that again.
I'm here.
Okay. Madam Chair, do you want to just, since we can't get a hold of Gabe, try to postpone that to the 29th as well?
Let's leave a message for him and take a break. Be my suggestion, Madam
Yeah,
Chair.
I would call for a recess, 5-minute recess. He might just gone to the restroom. He was expecting us to call today, so he should be available. So, I don't think we need to make a motion for recess. Seems to me like I've done that and I was scolded. Okay, we don't need to make a motion. I can't either, it goes back and forth. So, I'm just gonna call a 5-minute recess. It's 2:55, we'll meet back at 3 o'clock.
Did we leave a message for Dave?
I'm texting him right now.
Thank you, Chief.
I
There
probably
was
did.
2 applications
Mhm.
for firemen or for chief.
I just didn't get time to print them out and go through them all, so.
You're good.
Yeah.
He said, give him 10 minutes.
10? Okay, we'll change that recess to 10 minutes, it'll be 5 after.
If I call Karen, she can send me copies of the applications.
They should be in your email. If they're not in your email, she can resend them.
Okay. Because apparently I don't have them. I thought I'd unloaded everything, but I guess not.
I How did your ribbon cutting go? That's good.
Sometimes that thing gets too loud.
What is that, hearing device?
Huh?
Is that hearing device?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Should get one of those for my husband.
My wife got that at Walgreens.
You can cut it and
Can you carry it in your
put
pocket?
it or something?
Yeah, you put it in your pocket.
Huh.
It's like a little, has 2 different sizes of buds.
Uh-huh.
$19.
Wow, okay.
It's in the, as seen on TV.
Oh, yeah? I don't have TVs. Cool. I'll make a note.
They get real
Oh,
loud.
God.
It gets loud, you hear it really good.
I haven't thought about that.
It gets loud, he said, you hear it.
I've got the earmuffs for the TV. You know, my son's got them. Because he has to have them. Working on big diesel engines, it
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
blows your ears up.
Yeah, that sure means, that means a few $1,000s for hearing aids.
Huh?
That means a few $1,000s for hearing aids.
I know it. Well, my son just got a new set, which is $29. And it's got a little necklace thing with a thing down here that you can adjust.
Oh, really?
I had my uncle showed me a box, a drawer in his dresser of nothing but hearing aids. And he said there was almost $100,000 in hearing aids in that drawer.
None of them
Years.
work? Oh, they just poop out after a while?
Well, it just never worked.
Oh,
He
boy.
was actually legally deaf,
Oh,
you know. He knew when you was cussing him out.
You can read your lips on those ones, I'm sure.
get the vibrations in the
And
air.
for some reason, don't try to whisper around him.
Oh, yeah?
You read your lips.
Oh, boy. I guess you probably get good at that when you can't hear.
They usually do it.
Takes you to the woodpile. Just go to the woodpile. It's been a few days and out there at the woodpile getting my butt lifted.
Yeah.
Didn't hurt you any, huh?
My dad was in Wisconsin.
Really?
Huh? Get in the truck and he'd drive all the way from Globe to Phoenix to my uncle's,
Serious?
or all the way from Globe to Show Up.
To get your weapon, huh?
Get a whipping. And I understood why, because he had a temper. He lost his temper, he hurt you.
So we'd do a different route, which is okay. At least he knew that, he knew not to
Right.
be beating on you.
I did too. I have a temper. When I lose my temper, I go crazy.
Yeah.
So he knocked his foreman out. The foreman was cool enough to, when he come up, can he come to? He says, I guess I'll ask him for that.
Well, at least he knew he was in there on him.
Well, all this is financial and
Yep.
meetings and stuff like that. This is,
Yeah, those are all the board members that have
Board
applied
members.
last month's meeting. Mhm.
there's only one I'm interested in.
Yep. Me too. Yep.
Are these costumes or are these?
He volunteers for damn near everything.
Mhm.
He cooks at the V on Friday nights.
Yeah, I caught him a couple times.
Been there a couple times?
No, I've called to talk to him. Can we call you back? I'm in the middle of cooking.
Yeah.
That'll be fine, whenever you're
Yeah.
ready.
Sometimes I got my health card, for food handling.
Uh-huh.
I can't
Well, you can't
can't
stand
stand
too
there.
long.
I
Yeah.
can't stand up.
Can you do the cash register or something?
I go back and talk to him. Who's those advocates?
She's our volunteer part-timer, or volunteer that comes into the office and assists Karen with stuff. And this is all on recording.
How about Larry Tennant?
Hey,
Never
Dick,
heard of him, and he was at the last month's.
you want to grab them and let them know this gauge ready, please?
And
He's ready.
She's right there. She was on our board for a couple months.
Oh, there.
I know this guy.
So we're back from recess at 3 o'clock, 3:01.
Who's this? This is the workshop agenda.
Gabe? You're going to have to speak up. We can barely hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
A little better.
This guy was law enforcement.
So he says.
Can we hear him?
Are you there, Gabe?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, we can hear you.
Much better.
Gabe, this is Charlotte.
Okay.
You know, we're going to be going through a transition here, and last time we met and we talked about until we're able to hire that part-time position we have in the budget, what were we going to do in the interim for posting of information, and our volunteer Phyllis was so kind to say if our administrative assistant needed her help, she would help her, and we appreciated that. So I'm wondering how that works with internal controls.
Yeah, so I mean, as far as the bill payment side, I mean, the board is still kind of there to make sure that all the improvements that go out are authorized. They're doing a kind of check. Concerning the money coming in, and ambulance program, we do have this, we can reconcile all of that, but yeah. There's some issues we'll need to figure out how to address.
I didn't hear the last part. Figure out what, Gabe? I didn't hear the last couple words you said.
Yeah, I feel like there's some procedures we're going to have to look at and implement new procedures when it comes to accounts receivable and payroll.
Accounts receivable and payroll? Did you say accounts receivable and payroll, Gabe?
Yes.
How would that look? How are you seeing that accounts receivable and payroll, Gabe? What would be needed to secure your concern? Or
Well, I think from a payroll standpoint, we need to look at a system like PayTech to manage our payroll as far as processing those. It's a much more secure system than QuickBooks is. It allows kind of full audit trail of any changes that occur or any processing that occurs that QuickBooks does not have. And then we're going to have to figure out who's approving time cards when the cease is gone. And the tool will take on responsibility. That's something that's going to fall upon a Golden Valley cease or where that's going to come into play. And then on the accounts receivable side, we'll have to speak with the attorney on to see what the implications are of maybe a board member opening the mail or somebody other than the volunteer opening the mail.
Gabe, what's the issue with you having with the volunteer opening the mail?
First time I was an employee of the district or in contact with the district, there's no really legal connection to the district. I guess once they open the mail, in order to do that, they open it, they know what to do with everything after they open it, and have some concern.
What other alternatives do we have, Gabe?
One option is a lock officer, or like, I think you need somebody in the office that's an employee of the district. Or the mail needs to be forwarded to maybe Golden Valley, open the mail, or a board member be responsible for coming down and opening the mail and sorting between payables that need to go to Karen for processing or deposits that need to be made. And then even then, like, how are we going to process deposits without an employee in the office?
We have that position in the July 1 budget. Is there any way or any reason why we couldn't, are we allowed to do that this funding year?
I mean, of course you are. The board is always authorized to move funds within the budget. And so there we are under budget in personnel costs. So there's that thing could be used to hire that person before the final.
Just so that you know, we met with Golden Valley this morning, and at this moment in time, a big issue for them is LMRFD not having sufficient staff, full-time staff, and so we're at this, nothing's moving forward with that right now because of that issue. So I thought I would give you that piece of information because you didn't know what happened at the meeting, the workshop.
Yeah, I was not aware of that. So yeah, we need that, like, again, without having a full-time staff. I don't see how the district, a staff person in the office, I don't see the district office is going to be able to perform its basic functions once the chief leaves.
Okay.
If from my standpoint, as far as integrity in the financial system, internal control, without a full-time employee, without an employee in the office, it's not going to work with stuff going to the district, and maybe the volunteers there, maybe the volunteers not there. They do not have a fiduciary responsibility to the district like the board does, and they don't have a responsibility to the district like an employee does. And so I don't see how we can allow there not to be somebody in the office.
So if we put this on our next agenda, which is the 29th, for the board to discuss and decide to go ahead and hire this part-time person, we have the funds to do it, and we can consider it then. Question mark.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that last thing, but
My question is, you're talking about we have the authority to hire that part-time position in this funding year. And so if we put it on our next agenda in 2 weeks on the 29th, the board can discuss and decide to proceed with that. And there shouldn't be a problem with that from a financial standpoint. Does that
no, not at all.
Okay. All right. All right. Anything now, Dave, between now and the 29th that has to do with internal controls, or we already talked about staffing coverage in the office?
I'm sorry.
Is there anything else on your radar between now and the next 2 weeks that we need to look at regarding internal controls?
No, because the chief's still going to be in place between now and the meeting on the 29th. As I mentioned before, I will be at the meeting on the 29th so we can discuss kind of all this stuff in further depth and further detail. But I think those are the big things at the forefront that need to be addressed is payroll, and then accounts receivable and opening of the mail and having an employee in the office once the chief.
Will you be talking with our attorney, Mr. Whittington, asking him that question about whether or not a board member can assume those responsibilities until we have someone in the office? Or is that something?
Yeah, I will have that answer on the 29th.
Okay, thank you. That's all that I have for that item.
Yeah, I don't have any further questions.
I won't until the next meeting.
Yeah.
I think I'll have more.
Yeah.
I don't know, I would kind of like to put the application, put the notice of a position open out there so that we can
I was
start.
under the assumption you already had somebody in mind, since that's what's posted on Facebook.
What's posted on Facebook.
I've been told, I don't have the clip with me right now, that you've already got somebody in mind for that position.
For the
The-
part-time office position? No, I don't. I didn't say any such thing.
I'm just saying, that's what I
Well,
see
more
out there.
can gossip, you know?
Okay, so the question, let's get back to the question, Chair Ray Bauer. What were you asking?
Well, I would like to put the position open, start advertising for this position as well, because it's as critical as every other position, obviously, in order to get the job done.
Well, and if we have somebody as an interim chief, then they'd be doing the same thing Tony's doing, so why do we need a part-time person
Well, no,
when we
they
got somebody
wouldn't.
that's free?
They wouldn't, not necessarily. That's not the chief's job to start with. So it should be an administrative assistant's job, or the office assistant to the administrative assistant. It shouldn't be the chief's job to go pick up the mail and sort it, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I was under the assumption from the other chiefs that they do some of that stuff so that they are aware of what's going on in their district.
Generally, the office person goes and sorts out the garbage, so the chief doesn't have to look at it, and the chief gets to look through the stuff that's remaining. It's not obviously goes elsewhere.
I'm just concerned that we're spending $16,000 a year for a part-time person that's gonna sit there and twiddle their thumbs 90% of the day.
I can guarantee they won't be twiddling their thumbs.
How can you guarantee that?
Well, you know, when we had a meeting, I find this interesting, because that was an issue of, well, nobody ever comes to the door, blah, 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 blah. And we had a meeting in the chief's office, let's see, October, November last year. And we weren't in it for very long, but 3 people came to the door during that period of time, which I was kind of surprised, but not, that, you know, we need to offer services to the district. We need to have an administrative office with posted hours that somebody's going to be in there, and it shouldn't have to be an interim chief or a chief doing that. And so that's part of the rationale for putting in a part-time position in next year's budget. I think that the taxpayers of this community are entitled to that kind of service, where they know from whether it be 9 to 2 or 10 to 3, that office is open. They can go in, they can get a burn permit, they can get let me finish, blood pressure check, whatever. That's been my thing all along from the day that I ran for office, is that office coverage be there. And so our accountant is saying it's important to have that person there. We don't have, we have not agreed on or identified who would be an interim chief, or responsibilities, or
Just hit
procedures.
something?
Hopefully it wasn't my car. Thank God.
Might be something. And our accountant is
Go
recommending
down,
that.
sign, blue.
And our accountant is recommending that we have somebody in the office. So we've been accused of waiting and waiting. This would be a proactive move to get started with putting out an application. So I think that's what Chairman Ray Bauer is suggesting. And so
I got a question to that. So are you saying this assistant's gonna be either a first responder or an EMT? Because some of that stuff you're mentioning, she can't do. They can't do blood pressure checks.
No, but they can have the door open. If we can't have personnel, the thing is, they run average 2.5 calls a week, right? 2.5 calls a week. So there's a fair amount of time they're there. There's a lot of
2.5 calls a week would be like, what, 12 calls a month? They're running an average 2.5 calls per day, not per week,
Okay,
per
well,
day.
Yeah.
And the other day they ran 9 calls in 18 hours.
the thing is, there are sufficient duties that should be done that are not being done, that can be taken care of in the office, while the door's being kept open for people to come in and ask questions, get their information if they need, get their burn permits, whatever.
Get board packets.
Board packets. You can have certain times, if there can't be somebody there all the time. Theoretically, the chief is going to be there, or whoever is filling the chief's position, the temporary whatever, will be there, even if the crew is out. If not, we can have like a weekly time when people can come in and get their blood pressure checks, or whatever. There's ways to do that, but the issue is, the primary issue is there's administrative duties that need to be done that are not being done. And there are administrative duties that the chief is currently doing that the chief should not be doing, that a part-time office person could do while maintaining an open office at least a few hours a day so that the people feel like they've got a fire district. If we're not getting much activity and people aren't coming in, it's because they don't think they even have a fire district anymore. It's been 6 years since they've had a door open.
Okay, well, for the 29th meeting, can you make a list of what you're talking about them doing? Because you're listing off blood pressure, which I know they can't do.
I don't think I said
I
blood
said
pressure.
that.
Charlotte did.
I did.
From what I'm understanding, fire suppression is supposed to be doing the bird prevents because that's their job.
But if they're out on call,
Well, they're supposed to be going out and checking to make sure that the areas are secure before they issue that permit. From what I'm understanding, they're not doing that, and they should be.
Yeah.
So to me, that's not an administrative position.
Well, picking up the mail, processing that, processing the ambulance billing payments, whatever's left, there'll be a few. There's always going to be a few coming through. Enter the accounts payable into QuickBooks, print and prep for signatures, depositing the accounts receivable to the bank account. Records management has not been done at all, and that's coming up on the 29th. That we're going to be required to do that. There's been nothing done for 3 years, and it is the law, and the attorney has stated that it does need to be done. They are lenient as long as there's some effort shown to comply with the law, and there's been no effort shown to comply with the law. So we need somebody to start doing that, checking the time sheets and sending to the AA, filing, new employee setup, employee terminations, procedure, answer the phone when the personnel's out on call. So these are things that would keep a person occupied in the office while they can keep the door open so people know they have a fire district. And when personnel are on duty, then they can do the blood pressure checks. The door's open. They can come in and get their blood pressure checks. They will know that the door's open during certain hours, and they can come in and do that. And if the crew's out, well, the crew's out.
That's my point, I guess. Either way, they're still not going to get their blood pressure checked if they're out. So I understand what you're saying, but I just can't see spending
You
that
were
extra
one of them
money.
arguing for that service when
I was never arguing for that because
the group that you were in.
I knew the administration could not do that.
are you saying that?
Keeping the door open.
Oh, excuse me. Door.
Director Cass. So are you saying on the 29th
Can you leave the
that-
blood
They cannot.
pressure? Right.
Yeah.
It should be the volunteer or the
No.
fireman.
Yes, they're the only ones that can do it.
Right.
Mhm.
if you had a blood pressure cuff there for people to come in and test their own blood pressure,
Well, you'd think they'd have their own at home if they got that issue.
that's not always the
I got
case.
2 of them.
Right, that's not always the case, but I guess I need to clarify. We need someone who is an employee of the district in the office to process the account information. It's a recommendation of our accountant, and I'm not sure, Director Cass, if on the 29th we're debating whether to even have this position in the budget or if we're going to be putting together a job description to advertise. I'm a little unclear where you're going.
Well, I guess I'm going to debate it because I don't, when we've got a perfectly good volunteer to help do this, it's not costing us anything. I guess I'm trying to justify spending $16,000 a year when Phyllis has been helping Karen do this for the last year and a half. So she already knows what's got to be done.
Did you hear what the accountant said? I guess that's the part I don't get. He's saying that that's not something that leaves the district open. And this is nothing against Phyllis. I'm hearing the accountant say that it has to do with internal controls. And we have fiduciary responsibilities for overseeing the monies that are coming in and the monies that are spent.
But I thought that's why we're getting an interim or a chief to do that.
But we don't have that person.
But you're sounding like you're wanting to do that on the 29th, so then we're going to have that. So that's why I guess I'm kind of confused, because your guys are pushing for the 29th for doing either or, but then you're also pushing to get this part-time person.
Well, then we get criticized if we don't cover the bases and make these arrangements, if we wait too long and then it's too late to do it. We don't know yet what we're going to have for interim chief coverage.
No, we don't. But I'm just saying, that's just my opinion on it. I know you guys don't like it, but I don't like the idea of spending $16,000 a year for stuff that I know Phyllis has been helping Karen with for the last year and a half.
But there's stuff that's not being done, that needs to be done, that leaves the district open.
Let's put it on the agenda for the 29th. I think the issue is going to be whether or not Director Cass and or Director Campbell agree to have this position in the budget. We have to have the budget approved and to be able to send to the Board of Supervisors after June.
Yeah, and I'm still waiting for that second budget, because from what I'm understanding, there's supposed to have been one with and one without. And I have not seen the one without that $16,000. I've only seen the one with.
Right.
And I wasn't at that meeting, but that's what I was told. There's supposed to be two. And I've not seen the second one.
You may want to ask if Gabe's still on the phone, since he's the one who prepares the budgets.
Gabe,
Yeah.
this is Debbie. Were you still going to submit the other budget without the $16,000 fee for the part-timer?
Yeah, I mean, we could do that.
Well, that's just what I
The direction I was
understood.
given from the budget workshop that I thought was to continue with the 10, but I've not received anything otherwise.
Okay, well, I just was under this, I was told that you were going to be doing one of each because I couldn't attend that meeting. So,
Yeah, I could do one without. To take that position out.
and will that also show our 5-year projection like the other one did?
Yes, it will.
Okay. I would like that, please.
Okay.
That's all my questions. Do you have any questions?
You're doing great.
I'm sorry, I missed what Joe said.
I'm doing great.
Thank you, Joe.
Well, I would like to make a motion that we put an ad out immediately for office coverage. And then we can yay it or nay it when the time comes.
I think, Madam Chair, I think that would be, you certainly can make a motion. I think that would be a little premature, since we can't agree on whether or not the position's going to be in the budget.
I agree.
It's a little muddy on the wording of the item C, because it says recommendations from CPA. It doesn't say going out for hire.
Well, it doesn't, he did recommend that,
Right, I understand.
Right.
and so I'm making that motion.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No. I'm naying,
Okay.
because it's not been resolved. I don't know why we're doing it. But
Oh, okay. I can see him now. Any problem?
we didn't hear it all.
So
There's
the
2
issue,
nays and 2 yeas.
let me just clarify for Joe, because he changed his vote.
Yeah.
The issue, Joe, is do we put out an ad now for part-time office position to kind of get a jump on things? And now, and then review that at the May 29th meeting.
It's in May 29th.
The motion
We'll
is
discuss
to,
it then again?
yes.
It's not going to be automatic vote for it.
No, we can put the application out. No one may apply, that'll help us tremendously. Or we can, on the 29th, decide what we want to do one way or the other.
Okay.
But the vote is, do we put the application out now?
So basically, they want to advertise now for that part-time position before we've decided what we want to do.
Is that okay with you?
Not me, because it's a waste of time, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. Because she's doing it already. Is she willing to keep doing it?
Yeah, she's already said she was going to.
Okay.
But Joe, the accountant is recommending we have an employee in the office for that. That's his recommendation. And again, it's not taking away anything from the volunteers' kindness to come in, but it's the recommendation of our accountant that we have an employee in that position.
It's a liability to the district, he's saying, if we continue as it is.
Did you get that part, Joe?
I heard that, but I agree with her. It's just $16,000 a year. We're already doing it. We're running short all the time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If we don't have to do
So I
it.
think Joe changed his vote, because Deb said no.
Right.
So
Don't make
two
much sense.
ayes
We
and 2 nays.
keep spending and keep going down.
Alrighty then. Well, I guess that's that. Let's see, what's next? That's it. Consideration of future agenda items, number 7.
I think we're going to look at A and B, Madam Chair. Will be continued.
Right. 6A and 6B will be continued to 529.
And I think C probably as well.
Right. 6A, B, and C.
Yep.
Move to 529.
Yep.
And then there'll be other items as well.
Yes.
Okay, our next regular board meeting, date and location will be May 29th, 2019, 2:30 p.m. here in Dolan Springs at the Chamber.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Next meeting.
The next meeting is,
Meeting is adjourned at 3:28.
2:30.
Thank you, Gabe.
Thanks, Gabe.
Thank you.
Bye.
I don't appreciate the screen.
2:30.
What time?
2:30.
Oh.
Thank you.
Are we here earlier? Does she need to?
Yeah, we need to make some,
Yes, shows are here, May 29th, that's just the regular meeting, but we don't know yet if we gotta cover it. Karen will let us know.
Take that money.
Yeah, Karen will let us know.
Yeah.